Every civilization has left behind questions that refuse to die. Questions so strange, that even modern science, satellites, and artificial intelligence still can't answer them. Imagine discovering a manuscript nobody on Earth can read, a signal from deep space that appeared for just 72 seconds, an entire colony that vanished without leaving a single body behind, or a man who hijacked an airplane, disappeared into a storm with $200,000, and was never seen again. These aren't Hollywood stories. They're real mysteries that have baffled historians, detectives, scientists, and governments for decades, sometimes centuries. Some believe the answers are hidden by secret organizations. Others think they're simply waiting for the right discovery. But what if, the clues have been in front of us all along? Over the next 13 minutes, we're going to uncover some of the world's greatest mysteries, separate fact from fiction, and explore the most believable explanations ever proposed. By the end, you'll realize that the greatest mystery isn't what happened. It's why we still can't prove the truth. Before we begin, subscribe to Zyra Mist and turn on notifications. Every week we uncover true mysteries, forgotten history, and unexplained events that will completely change the way you see our world. The Voynich Manuscript, the book no one can read. Imagine opening a book that's over 600 years old, only to realize that every single word inside is written in a language no human has ever identified. This is the Voynich Manuscript, one of history's most baffling puzzles. Discovered in 1912 by rare book dealer Wilfred Voynich, the manuscript is believed to have been created in the early 1400s. Carbon dating confirmed that the parchment itself is authentic, not a modern fake. Yet its contents remain completely unreadable. Every page is filled with elegant handwriting, strange symbols, mysterious diagrams, bizarre plants that don't exist anywhere on Earth, astronomical charts unlike anything seen in medieval Europe, and illustrations of women bathing in what appear to be interconnected pools or biological structures. At first glance, it looks like a forgotten encyclopedia from another civilization. Naturally, experts assumed the code would eventually be cracked. It never was. For more than a century, the world's greatest cryptographers, including codebreakers from World War II and modern artificial intelligence systems, have tried to decipher it. Every attempt has ended the same way. Failure. Some researchers believe the manuscript records an unknown language that has since disappeared. Others argue it's an advanced encrypted text, created to hide forbidden scientific or medical knowledge. Then there's an even stranger theory, that it wasn't meant to be read by ordinary people at all. Instead, it may have served as a secret guide used by an exclusive group whose knowledge vanished with them. But skeptics have another explanation. What if the entire manuscript is an elaborate medieval hoax? The problem is that hoaxes usually contain patterns that eventually reveal themselves. The Voynich manuscript behaves like a real language. Words repeat naturally. Sentence structures appear consistent. Statistical analysis shows linguistic patterns that resemble genuine human communication rather than random gibberish. So if it is fake, why was it created with such incredible precision hundreds of years before modern cryptography even existed? To this day, no one knows. And if one mysterious book wasn't enough, our next mystery came not from Earth, but from somewhere far beyond our planet. The wow signal. Did we hear an alien civilization? On the night of August 15, 1977, something extraordinary happened. Deep inside the Big Ear Radio Observatory in Ohio, astronomers were quietly scanning the universe for signs of intelligent life. The telescope wasn't searching for planets or stars, it was listening for radio signals that might have been intentionally transmitted by another civilization. Most nights, the recordings were uneventful. Static. Natural cosmic noise. Nothing unusual. But then, for exactly 72 seconds, everything changed. A radio signal suddenly appeared that was so powerful and so precise that it immediately caught the attention of astronomer Jerry Emin. As he reviewed the computer printout, he circled the mysterious sequence of characters, 6EQJ5, and wrote one word in red ink beside it. Wow! That single handwritten note gave the signal its legendary name. What made the wow signal so extraordinary wasn't just its strength. It arrived on the 1420 MHz hydrogen frequency, a frequency scientists have long considered one of the most logical channels for interstellar communication. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, so many researchers believe that any advanced civilization might deliberately choose this frequency to send a message across the stars. The signal was incredibly narrow, unlike the broad radio noise produced by natural cosmic events. It seemed engineered. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. The telescope searched the same region again. Nothing. Other observatories joined the hunt. Still nothing. For nearly 50 years, scientists have continued scanning that exact patch of sky. The mysterious transmission has never been detected again. Over the decades, dozens of explanations have been proposed. Perhaps it was a rare natural phenomenon we've never observed since. Maybe it came from a passing comet reflecting radio waves. Some even suggested it was interference from Earth. Yet every major explanation has faced serious problems. None can fully explain the signal's unique characteristics, its strength, and its precise frequency. Could it have been a one-time transmission from an intelligent civilization hundreds, or even thousands, of light-years away? Or was it simply one of the universe's strangest coincidences? We may never know. But while scientists searched the sky for answers, another mystery unfolded much closer to home. An entire English colony simply disappeared. The lost colony of Roanoke, an entire settlement vanished. Long before the United States existed, more than 100 English settlers arrived on a small island off the coast of present-day North Carolina. Their mission was simple: establish England's first permanent colony in the New World. It was 1587, and the settlement seemed full of promise. Families built homes. Supplies were unpacked. Children played along the shoreline. Among them was Virginia Dare, the first English child born in North America. Everything appeared to be going according to plan. But there was one major problem. The colony desperately needed more food, tools, and supplies. Governor John White volunteered to sail back to England, promising the settlers he'd return as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, history had other plans. England was preparing for war against the Spanish Armada, and nearly every available ship was diverted for military service. What White expected to be a short journey turned into a 3-year delay. Finally, in 1590, he returned to Roanoke. What he found was beyond comprehension. The colony was completely empty. No people. No bodies. No signs of violence. No evidence of a battle. The houses had been carefully dismantled rather than destroyed. Fences were taken down in an orderly way, as if the settlers had planned to leave, not flee in panic. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post. Croton. Nearby, the letters CRO were carved into a tree. Before leaving, White had agreed with the settlers that if they were forced to relocate, they would carve the name of their destination. If they left under attack, they would also carve a Maltese cross as a distress signal. There was no cross. Only the word Croton, the name of a nearby island and the Native American tribe that lived there. Many historians believe the settlers simply moved and eventually merged with the Croton people to survive. Later reports described Native Americans with unusually light-colored eyes and European features, fueling speculation that the colonists had been absorbed into the local community. Others believe disease, famine, or conflict slowly wiped them out after they relocated. And, of course, more mysterious theories have emerged over the centuries: secret massacres, supernatural disappearances, even claims of unexplained forces. But despite centuries of archaeological expeditions, no definitive evidence has ever revealed exactly what happened to the lost colony. More than 430 years later, Roanoke remains one of history's greatest unsolved disappearances. And while an entire colony vanished without a trace, one man managed to disappear from the sky itself, after committing one of the boldest crimes in aviation history. His name was D.B. Cooper. D.B. Cooper, the man who vanished into thin air. It was the afternoon of November 24, 1971. The day before Thanksgiving. Airports across the United States were packed with travelers rushing home for the holidays. Among the crowd at Portland International Airport was an ordinary-looking man in his mid-40s. He wore a dark business suit, a white shirt, a black tie secured with a simple tie clip. Nothing about him stood out. He purchased a one-way ticket under the name Dan Cooper and quietly boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305, headed for Seattle. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a flight attendant a small folded note. At first, she assumed it was another passenger trying to flirt. She slipped it into her pocket without reading it. The man leaned closer and calmly said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." When she unfolded the paper, her heart sank. The message was short, direct, and terrifying. He opened his briefcase just enough for her to glimpse what appeared to be 8 red cylinders connected by wires and a battery. Whether it was a real bomb or an elaborate fake has never been proven. But no one aboard was willing to take the risk. Unlike most hijackers, Cooper remained astonishingly calm. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He didn't threaten passengers. He simply gave precise instructions. He demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. Authorities had little choice. When the aircraft landed, every passenger was safely released. The ransom was delivered. And then Cooper ordered the plane back into the air. This time, only the flight crew remained on board. As the Boeing 727 climbed into the cold, stormy night over the forests of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper made one final request. He instructed the pilots to fly low and slow, with the rear stairway deployed, a unique feature found on the Boeing 727. At approximately 8:13 p.m., the crew felt a sudden upward movement, as if a heavy weight had left the aircraft. Cooper had jumped into darkness, into freezing rain, into rugged mountains and endless forests below. By the time the plane landed, he was gone. The FBI launched one of the largest investigations in American history. Thousands of soldiers, helicopters, divers, and search teams combed the wilderness. Nothing. No body. No parachute. No clothing. No trace of the man who had seemingly vanished into the night. Then, nearly 9 years later, a young boy digging along the banks of the Columbia River discovered something extraordinary. 3 bundles of badly decayed $20 bills. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money exactly. It proved one thing. At least some of the money had reached the ground. But how it got there, and what happened to the rest, remains unknown. Did Cooper survive the jump and disappear under a new identity? Did he die in the wilderness, his remains never found? Or was he far more experienced than anyone realized, planning every detail long before boarding Flight 305? More than 50 years later, the mystery endures. The FBI officially closed its active investigation in 2016, but the case has never truly been solved. Somewhere, hidden among the facts and the countless theories, the truth may still be waiting. And while Cooper disappeared from the skies, our next mystery involves a ship that drifted across the Atlantic Ocean with every meal prepared, every belonging untouched, but not a single person left alive, or even missing in sight. The Mary Celeste. On December 5, 1872, the crew of the British merchant ship Dei Grazia spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic Ocean, about 400 miles east of the Azores. From a distance, the ship looked perfectly normal. Its sails were partially raised. It wasn't sinking. There was no visible damage. But something felt wrong. Repeated signals received no response. No crew appeared on deck. No captain emerged from the cabin. Curious and increasingly concerned, a boarding party climbed aboard. What they found would become one of the greatest maritime mysteries ever recorded. The ship was the Mary Celeste. Just 1 month earlier, she had departed New York bound for Genoa, Italy, carrying over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 experienced crew members. 10 people in total. Now, every single one of them was gone. The strangest part. The ship wasn't a wreck. Food supplies were still stocked. Fresh drinking water remained untouched. The crew's clothing, valuables, and personal belongings were still neatly stored inside their cabins. The captain's sword hung in place. His wife's sewing machine sat exactly where she'd left it, with unfinished fabric still beneath the needle. Even a half-finished meal appeared to have been abandoned in a hurry. There were no signs of violence. No blood. No struggle. No evidence of pirates. The cargo was still largely intact. The only obvious clues were that the ship's lifeboat was missing, one pump wasn't functioning properly, and the last entry in the captain's log had been written 9 days earlier, placing the ship hundreds of miles from where it was eventually found. So, what happened during those missing 9 days? One of the most accepted theories suggests that fumes from the highly flammable alcohol cargo may have frightened Captain Briggs. Even without a visible fire, leaking vapor could have created the fear of a catastrophic explosion. To protect everyone on board, he may have ordered the crew into the lifeboat while keeping the ship attached by a rope. If that rope snapped in rough seas, the Mary Celeste would have slowly drifted away, leaving those in the lifeboat stranded in the open ocean. It sounds reasonable. But there's one problem. Investigators found no evidence of an explosion. And many experienced sailors questioned whether Captain Briggs, known for his calm judgment, would have abandoned a ship that was still perfectly seaworthy. Other theories were far more dramatic. Pirates. Mutiny. A giant rogue wave. A seaquake. Even attacks by mythical sea creatures became part of the legend. Yet every explanation leaves important questions unanswered. No confirmed trace of the captain, his family, or any crew member has ever been found. The ocean kept it secret. More than 150 years later, the Mary Celeste remains one of history's most famous ghost ships, a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't what we find. They're what disappears. But if you think an empty ship is unsettling, imagine discovering the frozen bodies of 9 experienced hikers on a remote mountain, with injuries so bizarre that even today, scientists still debate what really happened. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. In the winter of 1959, 9 of the Soviet Union's most experienced young hikers set out on an expedition through the northern Ural Mountains. They weren't amateurs. Most were university students with advanced certifications in wilderness survival and winter mountaineering. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, had carefully planned the route, and the team carried enough equipment to survive temperatures below -30 degrees Celsius -22 degrees Fahrenheit. This was supposed to be another successful expedition. Instead, it became one of history's most chilling mysteries. When the group failed to return on schedule, search teams were sent into the mountains. Days later, rescuers spotted the hikers' tent. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then they noticed something impossible. The tent had been slashed open from the inside. Not the outside. The inside. Whatever terrified the hikers had convinced them to escape immediately, without using the entrance. Even stranger. Many of their boots, heavy coats, gloves, and winter gear were still inside. They had fled into the freezing darkness wearing little more than socks, underwear, or light clothing. No experienced mountaineer would willingly do that, especially in temperatures cold enough to kill within minutes. Following footprints in the snow, rescuers reached the edge of a nearby forest. There they discovered the first two bodies beneath a large cedar tree. Both men were barefoot. Both had died from hypothermia. Nearby, evidence suggested they had desperately tried to light a small fire. The branches above them were broken nearly 5 meters high, as if someone had climbed the tree in panic, trying to see what was happening back at the campsite. Over the following weeks, more bodies were found. Some appeared to have been crawling back toward the tent before collapsing in the snow. But the final 4 hikers weren't discovered until spring, buried beneath deep snow in a nearby ravine. And that's when the mystery became even darker. Several victims had suffered catastrophic internal injuries. Broken ribs. Massive skull fractures. Injuries so severe that one investigator compared them to the force of a high-speed car crash. Yet, there were almost no external wounds. One woman, Ludmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. Another victim was also missing his eyes. For years, these gruesome details fueled theories involving secret military experiments, unknown predators, escaped prisoners, and even extraterrestrials. Then another disturbing discovery emerged. Some of the victims' clothing contained elevated levels of radiation. The Soviet investigation offered only a vague conclusion. The hikers had died because of a compelling natural force. No further explanation. The case was quietly closed. Decades later, scientists revisited the evidence. One modern theory suggests that a rare type of slab avalanche may have struck the campsite during the night. The pressure could explain the internal injuries, while the hikers' desperate escape into the freezing darkness explains the hypothermia. Another study proposed that powerful katabatic winds, violent downhill gusts capable of producing terrifying low-frequency sounds, may have triggered panic before the group abandoned the tent. These theories answer some questions. But not all. Why cut open the tent instead of using the entrance? Why were some footprints calm instead of frantic? And why were experienced survival experts unable to return to safety after leaving their camp? More than 65 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to divide scientists, historians, and investigators. The mountain has never revealed exactly what happened that night. But while this mystery was buried beneath snow, the next one spent nearly 2,000 years hidden beneath the sea. And when divers finally recovered it, they realized they had found a machine so advanced that it seemed completely impossible for the ancient world. The Antikythera mechanism. In the spring of 1900, a group of sponge divers searching the waters near the small Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon something extraordinary. Resting nearly 150 feet beneath the surface was the wreck of an ancient Roman ship, believed to have sunk sometime around the 1st century BC. At first, archaeologists celebrated the discovery for its statues, jewelry, coins, and priceless artifacts. But hidden beneath layers of mud and corrosion was a small lump of greenish bronze. It looked completely insignificant. In fact, many experts almost ignored it. That would have been one of archaeology's greatest mistakes. Months later, as conservators carefully cleaned the corroded object, tiny bronze gears began to appear. Then more gears. Then engraved markings. Then dozens of intricate mechanical components. No one could believe what they were seeing. Ancient Greece wasn't supposed to have technology like this. For decades, researchers struggled to understand the mysterious device. It wasn't until modern X-ray and 3D imaging revealed its hidden interior that the truth became clear. The artifact contained more than 30 precision-cut bronze gears, all working together like the inside of a luxury mechanical watch. Except this machine was over 2,000 years old. It could predict the movements of the sun, track the moon, Calculate lunar and solar eclipses years in advance. Follow the positions of the known planets. Even predict the dates of ancient Olympic Games. In other words, it was an analog computer, built nearly 1,500 years before similar mechanical technology appeared in medieval Europe. The discovery stunned historians. How could ancient engineers design something so unbelievably sophisticated? Even more puzzling. No other machine remotely like it has ever been found. It appears in history almost out of nowhere. And then, technology of this complexity seems to disappear for over a millennium. Some researchers believe the Antikythera mechanism was created by followers of the legendary mathematician Archimedes, whose inventions were said to be centuries ahead of their time. Others think it was part of a forgotten scientific tradition destroyed through wars, fires, and the collapse of ancient civilizations. If that's true, how much knowledge has humanity already lost? How many inventions vanished before they could change history? The Antikythera mechanism reminds us that history isn't always a straight line. Sometimes civilizations achieve incredible breakthroughs, only for that knowledge to disappear, forcing future generations to rediscover it from scratch. But if ancient technology can leave us speechless, the next mystery can only truly be appreciated from the sky. Across the deserts of Peru lie hundreds of enormous drawings, some stretching hundreds of feet across the landscape. You can barely recognize them from the ground. Yet from above, they form perfect images of animals, geometric shapes, and symbols. The question is, who created the Nazca lines, and why? Imagine standing in one of the driest deserts on Earth. As far as you can see, nothing but rocks, sand, and endless empty land. It seems completely ordinary. But the moment you rise into the sky, the desert transforms. Below you appears a giant hummingbird, a spider stretching over 150 feet, a monkey with a perfectly coiled tail, a whale, a condor with wings wider than a commercial airplane. Hundreds of enormous geometric shapes and perfectly straight lines that run for miles across the barren landscape. These are the Nazca lines of southern Peru, one of archaeology's most astonishing mysteries. Created between 500 BC and 500 AD by the ancient Nazca civilization, the geoglyphs cover nearly 450 square kilometers of desert. The lines were made in a surprisingly simple way. The Nazca people removed the dark, iron-rich stones covering the surface, exposing the lighter-colored earth beneath. Because the region receives almost no rainfall and experiences very little wind, the markings remain preserved for nearly 2,000 years. But that simple method only deepens the mystery. Why create artwork so enormous that it can only be fully appreciated from high above? The Nazca civilization had no airplanes, no hot air balloons, no mountain peaks high enough to reveal every design at once. So who were these giant images meant for? Some archaeologists believe the lines were ceremonial pathways used during religious rituals. People may have walked the long geometric patterns while praying for rain in one of the world's driest environments. Others suggest they functioned as an astronomical calendar, aligning with the movements of the sun, moon, or important stars to help mark the changing seasons. However, many of those astronomical alignments don't consistently hold up under modern analysis. Then there are the theories that captured the world's imagination. In the late 20th century, some writers claimed the Nazca lines were ancient landing strips built for extraterrestrial visitors. It's a dramatic idea, but there's no credible archaeological evidence supporting it. The lines are far too shallow to support aircraft, and many are located on uneven terrain that would make landing impossible. Yet one question still refuses to disappear. If these giant figures weren't made to be seen from the sky, why make them so massive in the first place? Perhaps the answer wasn't about human eyes at all. Maybe the images were symbolic offerings to gods believed to watch from the heavens. Or perhaps we've simply misunderstood their true purpose for centuries. Whatever the truth may be, the Nazca lines continue to challenge everything we think we know about ancient civilizations. But if mysterious markings across a desert seem impossible, our next mystery covers an area of ocean so infamous that countless disappearances have turned it into a global legend. A place where ships, aircraft, and entire crews have vanished without explanation. Welcome to the Bermuda Triangle. Stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico lies a region of the Atlantic Ocean that has fascinated, and frightened, the world for decades. It's known simply as the Bermuda Triangle. For generations, this area has been surrounded by stories of ships disappearing without distress calls, aircraft vanishing from radar, and crews that were never seen again. Whether every story is true or not, one incident changed the legend forever. It was December 5, 1945. 5 U.S. Navy bombers, known collectively as Flight 19, took off from Florida on what should have been a routine training exercise. The weather was calm. The pilots were experienced. Everything began normally. Then, radio transmissions started becoming increasingly confusing. The flight leader reported that his compass was malfunctioning. Soon after, another chilling message was heard. "We don't know where we are. Everything looks wrong." The pilots believed they had somehow become lost over open water. Ground control desperately tried guiding them back. But the radio signals became weaker. Then, silence. All 14 crew members aboard the 5 aircraft disappeared. As if that weren't strange enough, a massive rescue plane carrying 13 additional crew members was dispatched to search for them. Less than 2 hours later, that aircraft disappeared as well. 27 people. 6 aircraft. Gone. Despite one of the largest search operations in U.S. Navy history, no confirmed wreckage of Flight 19 was ever recovered. The mystery exploded into newspapers around the world. Soon, older disappearances in the region were linked together, and the Bermuda Triangle became synonymous with the unexplained. Books claimed the area swallowed ships whole. Television documentaries spoke of time warps, underwater civilizations, and mysterious energy fields. Some even suggested the lost city of Atlantis lay beneath the waves, generating forces capable of disrupting navigation. Others blamed extraterrestrials. But what does the evidence actually say? Modern researchers point out that the Bermuda Triangle is one of the busiest shipping and aviation routes on Earth. With so much traffic, accidents are statistically inevitable. The region is also known for sudden tropical storms, powerful Gulf Stream currents that can quickly carry away wreckage, and unpredictable weather capable of confusing even experienced pilots. In the case of Flight 19, many historians believe the lead pilot became disoriented after mistakenly identifying his location. That single navigational error may have caused the entire squadron to fly farther into the Atlantic until they ran out of fuel. As for the missing rescue aircraft, witnesses reported seeing a massive explosion shortly after takeoff, suggesting it may have suffered a catastrophic fuel vapor ignition, a problem that had affected similar aircraft before. These explanations solve many parts of the mystery. But not all of them. Because even today, new disappearances continue to fuel speculation, ensuring the Bermuda Triangle remains one of the world's most enduring legends. Yet the next mystery didn't happen on Earth at all. It came from the deepest part of our planet's oceans. A sound so powerful that, for years, scientists wondered whether something unimaginably large was still hiding beneath the sea. It was called the Bloop. The ocean covers more than 70% of Earth's surface. Yet we've explored only a tiny fraction of it. Far below the reach of sunlight lies a world so dark and so immense that it remains one of the least understood places on our planet. And in 1997, that hidden world spoke. Scientists from the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, were monitoring underwater microphones, known as hydrophones, designed to detect low-frequency sounds across vast distances. These sensors had originally been developed during the Cold War to track submarines. Instead, they recorded something completely unexpected. A massive, ultra-low frequency sound echoed through the Pacific Ocean. It was so powerful that it was detected by sensors more than 3,000 miles apart. The recording lasted just over 1 minute. Researchers gave it a simple nickname: the Bloop. At first, no one knew what had produced it. The sound didn't match known earthquakes. It wasn't a volcanic eruption. It didn't resemble any submarine or man-made explosion. Even more intriguing, its frequency pattern looked surprisingly similar to that produced by living marine animals. But there was one enormous problem. For an animal to create a sound that loud, it would have to be far larger than the blue whale, the largest creature ever known to exist. That possibility ignited the public imagination. Newspapers and television shows began asking a chilling question. Could an unknown giant creature still be living in the unexplored depths of the Pacific? Stories about prehistoric sea monsters, colossal squid, and even creatures inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's fictional Cthulhu spread across the internet. For years, no one had a definitive answer. Then, in the early 2000s, researchers studying Antarctica made an important discovery. When enormous glaciers crack, shift, or scrape against the ocean floor, they can produce incredibly powerful low-frequency sounds. Those sounds matched the Bloop's acoustic signature remarkably well. Today, most scientists believe the Bloop was most likely caused by ice quakes, massive fractures occurring within Antarctic ice shelves. It's a convincing explanation. But like many great mysteries, not everyone is satisfied. Some still argue that the original data leaves unanswered questions, while others point out that our oceans remain so poorly explored that surprises are almost guaranteed. Whether it was moving ice, or something we've yet to discover, the Bloop reminds us that Earth's greatest unknown frontier isn't space. It's the world hidden beneath our own oceans. And finally, we come to a mystery that isn't about strange sounds, abandoned ships, or ancient civilizations. It's about a man who turned fear into a weapon. A killer who taunted police with encrypted letters, and whose true identity remains one of the greatest unsolved criminal mysteries in history. The Zodiac Killer. In the late 1960s, Northern California was gripped by fear. A mysterious killer was targeting young couples in isolated locations, striking without warning before disappearing into the night. At first, the attack seemed unrelated. Different locations, different victims, almost no witnesses. Then, the newspapers received a letter. Inside was a chilling confession. The writer claimed responsibility for the murders and demanded that his message be printed on the front page. If it wasn't, he promised to kill again. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. Enclosed with the letter was a strange series of symbols. A cryptogram. The writer challenged police and the public to solve it. At the bottom of the page, he signed his message with a symbol that would become infamous around the world. A circle with a cross through it. And a name. Zodiac. Over the next several years, the Zodiac Killer continued sending letters to newspapers, mocking investigators and describing details that only the murderer could have known. Some messages included new ciphers. Others contained bizarre threats. One letter claimed he was collecting victims for the afterlife. Another hinted that he enjoyed watching the panic spread across California. One of the original ciphers, known as the 408 cipher, was cracked within days by a schoolteacher and his wife. Its message was deeply unsettling. The killer claimed he enjoyed murdering people because it was more fun than killing wild game. But the most famous code, the 340 cipher, defied experts for more than 50 years. It wasn't until 2020 that an international team of codebreakers finally solved it using modern computing techniques. Surprisingly, the message contained no dramatic confession or hidden identity. Instead, it was another taunting letter, mocking authorities and laughing at the worldwide attention he had received. Despite decades of investigation, thousands of suspects, DNA analysis, fingerprint comparisons, handwriting examinations, and countless documentaries, the Zodiac Killer's true identity has never been confirmed. Several names have been proposed over the years. Each appeared convincing. Each eventually fell apart under scrutiny. The case officially remains unsolved. Some investigators believe the killer died decades ago. Others suspect he lived an ordinary life, blending into society while carrying one of history's darkest secrets. If that's true, it's entirely possible that people passed him on the street, worked beside him, or even knew him personally, without ever realizing who he really was. More than half a century later, the Zodiac Killer continues to haunt investigators, not because of what is known, but because of everything that still isn't. Part 13, 12 to 1300 hours. Conclusion. Every mystery you've seen today has something in common. A book that no one can read. A radio signal that never returned. An entire colony that vanished. A hijacker who disappeared into the night. A ghost ship with no crew. 9 hikers who died under impossible circumstances. A machine centuries ahead of its time. Giant drawings visible only from the sky. An ocean that keeps its secrets. A sound from the deepest waters on Earth. And a killer whose name may never be known. For every mystery we've solved, there are hundreds more waiting in the shadows. History is full of missing pieces. Science continues to uncover incredible answers every year. But sometimes, the questions survive longer than the people searching for them. Perhaps one day, a forgotten document will be discovered. A new technology will decode an ancient language. A lost wreck will be found. Or a single piece of DNA will finally reveal a killer's identity. Until then, these mysteries remain suspended between fact and legend, reminding us that no matter how advanced humanity becomes, there are still places we haven't explored. Secrets we haven't uncovered. And stories that refuse to end. Because the greatest mysteries aren't always hidden in the past. Sometimes, they're still waiting to be discovered. If you enjoyed this journey into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Xyromist, and tell us in the comments, which mystery do you think will be solved first, and which one will remain unsolved forever. Until next time, keep questioning everything.